Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns report. Coming up on today's show, we're going to get to our mailbag as we have questions waiting for us from our live show, which airs every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So come hang out with us next week if you have some questions you want to ask. But without further ado, let's jump into our first question. It comes in from Levi Mayfield. I think Michael Hall could possibly start this year at times. Your opinion? I would pump the brakes on that. Michael Hall got drafted as early as he did because of his young age and great athletic abilities. He's nearly 300 pounds, and he ran a 4.75 40-yard dash. For reference, like the running back from Notre Dame, Audric Estime, what do you run, like a 4.71 40-yard dash? So not very far off from a running back 40-yard time. But regardless, I think Mike Hall is going to need some work because the inconsistency levels were very real last year at Ohio State. And for the Browns picking at 54, they weren't drafting for any major need, but thinking down the line, a lot of their defensive tackles are older, veteran, one-year contract type guys, expiring deals in the near future. So it was a good time for them to reset at that position with some youth. But I think that was a draft pick for 2025 and beyond. If everyone's healthy for the Browns' interior defensive line, I don't think we're going to see a lot of Michael Hall. And that's not going to concern me, to be honest with you. Maybe he has a great training camp and tells me to shove it, but I'm not buying that stock right now. Levi, I appreciate the question, though. Tyrone, who is your underrated player who you think could make an impact this year? Is Nathaniel Watson make an impact this year? Mine is Nathaniel Watson or Trenton Welch, the tight end. So the 6th-round draft pick from Mississippi State, Nathaniel Watson, or the UDFA tight end from Wyoming, Trenton Welch. Tyrone, I'll give you credit. You're going a lot deeper than I will. I'm not going to go with a 6th-round draft pick, although I think Watson, of all the rookies, probably has the easiest path to a starting role since the competition above him is not as tough as like Mike Hall or Zach Zinter or Jamari Thrash. So underrated player I think can make a big impact this year. I think people have probably forgotten about Cedric Tillman a little too easy. I understand that last year there were probably bigger expectations for the rookie, but I felt like he was still adjusting to the NFL speed, and he still had some really good moments in practices, and I know just practice and training camp and whatnot, even on Sundays as well. But no, I'm not going to act like Cedric Tillman does not exist. So I would go with Cedric Tillman as someone who I think will have a bigger impact than people in May and June are talking about for the upcoming season. Tyrone, thank you for the question. Cool guy called Zone. A year from now, who do you think starts from the Browns from all the rookies drafted this year? I think Zach Zinter will start next year, and that's a weird one to lead off with, but I just feel like the Browns are not going to have Joel Petroni and Wyatt Teller beyond their books for $20+ million cap hits. Now, there's a very good chance both those guys play a really solid 2024 campaign, and the Browns just extend those players and continue rolling with really good guard play and say, sorry, Zinter, you'll have to wait a little bit longer, or we'll find a role for you elsewhere. But I feel like Zinter's got a pretty good path in front of him for 2025, which is crazy to say out loud, actually. But I would go with Zach Zinter. And then Mike Hall, like Quentin Jefferson, Maurice Hurst, they're on one-year contracts. Shelby Harris is on a 2-year deal. Dalvin Tomlinson's under contract next year. But Mike Hall could quickly become one of the top 3 defensive tackles next year. But I still think we're going to see probably Harris if he's still on the team, but him and Tomlinson start. However, I'm going to go with Zach Zinter as someone who I think could start next year. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, if you want to go hang out with our friends over at Prize Picks, make sure to go ahead and do so at Chat Sports, because here at Chat Sports, we're going to get you guys a $100 deposit match when you use code CLNS. Now, if you're asking what the heck is Prize Picks, well, it's daily fantasy made easy, where all you've got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, Prize Picks already has season-long stat projections for 2024. So if you want to get some action on something that's more than just one Sunday and have something to watch all season long, I'm taking the more on Jerry Jeudy's receiving yards. 725 feels criminally low for the role I think he'll have this year. Myles Garrett, I'll take the more on his sacks at 13.75. And then I'll just be a hater and take the less on TJ Watt at 15.25. And you can have one more thing to cry about at the NFL awards meeting. But download the Prize Picks app today and use that code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to Prize Picks for supporting us here at the Cleveland Browns Report. Joshua Miller, Greg Newsome, and a 2025 sixth-round draft pick for Marshon Lattimore. We had a similar question last week about almost identical this trade idea right here. I don't think New Orleans does it. Sure, maybe the Saints look at this as an opportunity to, yes, downgrade player-wise from Lattimore to Newsome, but also upgrade in terms of the cost for the players. Newsome being a lot cheaper than Marshon Lattimore, and the Saints always finding themselves in sticky cap situations. But ultimately, I don't think New Orleans does this, and I don't think Andrew Berry is looking to trade Greg Newsome. As much as people online try to get it done, I don't think the Browns have any interest internally. So I'm going to say no, because the Saints would never do this, and also I just don't think Andrew Berry wants to deal Greg Newsome. Slim Jim, if you could trade for any player, who would it be? Oh boy. If I'm thinking through the lens of Andrew Berry, I don't think he wants to make any more additions at the wide receiver room. I do think he's a lot more confident in it than maybe some of the fan bases. But if Deebo Samuel was truly available and it wasn't going to cost a whole lot, don't you feel like that is the Zadarius Smith of the wide receiver position for this offseason? Or did the Browns need Zadarius Smith last year? No, I mean, they just signed Okoronkwo. They drafted Isaiah McGuire. They drafted Alex Wright the year before. They've got Myles Garrett. No, but Andrew Berry loves investing in cornerstone pieces. So right now, his cornerstone piece is quarterback, Deshaun Watson. So if Deebo Samuel is truly available, he obviously would bring a skill set that is missing from this wide receiver, yards after the catch ability. Amari Cooper's really, really good at a lot of things. He's never been a yak king, okay? Jerry Jeudy's much more of a yak player than Cooper is, and Elijah Moore's got some yak ability himself as well. But Deebo is one of one in that category. So Deebo Samuel, I think, would be maybe the only target the Browns seriously look at. And that's not even like a, hey, I'm hearing thing. Just if I were Andrew Berry or thinking of what Andrew Berry would do, that could be a name that pops up. Lil Beam, next one up on the show. What do you think about possibly signing Zach Cunningham? He had a decent year last year. I also like Kwon Alexander. Cunningham with the Eagles last year. The Philadelphia Eagles linebacker core was atrocious last year, right? They added Shaq Leonard towards the end of the year just to try and bring some reinforcements in. I'm not going to say no to adding any linebacker just because I feel like that is the Browns' probably skinniest, maybe weakest position group at this time. Love JOK, but up until last year, JOK always missed time. Small career, small sample size, but still, smaller frame, you're going to pick up some more bruises along the way. So I would not be opposed to adding a linebacker, whether it's Zach Cunningham or Kwon Alexander. My suspicion is we don't see a linebacker signing probably until training camp. Remember last year when the Browns added Shelby Harris early in training camp? They went through like a week of practices, and they're like, all right, we tried it out. Not working. We're signing Shelby Harris now. Maybe the Browns find themselves in the same spot for linebacker, although they've already signed 2 linebackers. Andrew Berry wanted Zach Cunningham. He would have signed him the first time, I think. It's not like Zach Cunningham has a huge price tag to his name. So he passed on him before. There's probably a good reason as to why. Jessica, next one up. Who do you think will be the preseason prince for the Browns like this year? Like Josh Dobbs and Austin Watkins. Jessica asking the hard-hitting question. We had Josh Dobbs in 2022, Austin Watkins in 2023. I got to look at the Browns depth chart because it is important to remember that preseason princes are never starters or anywhere close to being starters in our preseason Prince rankings. Preseason Prince rankings, I'm going to go with just scanning over some of the young guys because I feel like they always got to be young. Kind of excited for Jawan Briggs, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. That could be a candidate for preseason Prince. Offensive preseason Prince. I've heard some buzz about this Armarion Brown, wide receiver from South Carolina. He was a UDFA. Maybe him? I'd go with those 2 guys. Lil Beam, should we trade for Dre Greenlaw? I mean, when do you want to have Dre Greenlaw play for you? This year? So if the answer is yes, I don't know if he's your guy. Remember, he popped his Achilles going onto the field in the Super Bowl. Maybe he comes back in November. Like, if you just think about the 9-month recovery-ish from an Achilles injury, and 9 months is being generous. A lot of times it's a full year, but if he does have a really fast rehab and recovery, you want to trade for a guy that wouldn't play until the last 5-6 weeks of the season? Maybe that's someone the Browns trade for at the trade deadline if by then they've got a much better idea as to where Greenlaw is at rehab-wise. But the Browns have had so many key players work their tail off this offseason rehabbing. All 3 tackles, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson. My guess is they're not looking to add another guy to the trainer's office. Jackson, next one up. Is a Brandon Aiyuk trade possible? No, it's not, and I'll tell you why. The Steelers are going to want more than what Brandon Aiyuk is worth, and for good reason. They don't want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk just wants the biggest contract from any wide receiver, and San Francisco is a bit hesitant to do that. So because the Steelers don't want to trade Aiyuk, that means they don't have to trade him unless they get an offer they truly cannot refuse. And I don't think we're going to see Andrew Berry, although he did that for Deshaun Watson, do another trade like that where he goes not 3 years without a first-round pick, but 4, maybe even 5 years without a first-round pick. And that's what the 49ers want, first-round picks. And I don't think the Browns are in the business of giving them up. All right, let's bring on Trizzy Trace to wrap up our mailbag today. Trace, pick a card for me, my friend.
I'm going to roll with the 7 of Hearts.
7 of Hearts?
Yep.
I want to go with I'm going to go with 5 of Diamonds.
I like that one.
I don't think we see the 5s very often.
No.
They're in here. I got the whole deck. So 5 of Diamonds. Okay.
Come on.
You ready?
I'm due for one.
What'd you say?
7 of Hearts.
Nah, not even close, dude. 3 of Spades.
Son of a gun.
3 of Spades. I feel the pain. All right. That will do it for us on today's show. Hope you have a good rest of your day and enjoyed our video. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all later.